Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Stevens, and, my name is John Stevens, and I'm with Southwest Bank here in Lubbock, and I'm privileged to serve as the United Way 2020 Board Chair. And it is my great honor to welcome you to the first ever live-streamed campaign kickoff. For those of you joining us online, we're grateful that you've made time to be with us. We'd also like to thank the representatives from our community partners, board of directors, campaign volunteers, and JUMPSTART companies for joining us in person. I know we're very spread out, but if you would just do us a favor, whenever you have finished eating, if you would please go ahead and put your mask back on and just maintain social distance protocols throughout today's event. Now I'd like to welcome Joy Loper, Executive Director with United Way Community Partner Upbring, to lead us in our invocation.
Good morning. Let us pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you today in gratitude that you are our peace and comfort when unexpected storms of life come, as they surely have this year. We pray for everyone in our community who's been affected in any way by the coronavirus pandemic. We pray for an end to the suffering and the isolation, and for the time when we can all gather again, unmasked face to unmasked face. We lift up our neighbors along the Gulf Coast who may be in harm's way in the path of the hurricane, and we ask for your protection and safety for everyone, all creatures, great and small. As we gather today, in person and through media, to once again step out to campaign for support for our Lubbock Area United Way, its 23 community partner agencies, and all the lives who are touched through this support, we ask you to help us be patient through uncertainty, joyful in hope, and faithful in prayer. We ask your blessing on all who serve as United Way staff, board members, and volunteers for this year's campaign, and for every person who provides help and hope through their gifts and support to our neighbors in their times of unexpected storms. We ask you to bless this meal in the hands that prepared it. May it provide strength for us as we seek to serve you each and every day. We pray in your most holy and glorious name, Lord. Amen.
Thank you, Joy. I would like to take a moment to recognize our 2020 campaign event sponsors. In a typical year, these sponsorships cover the cost of our mid and final campaign report meetings. This year, those gifts are being extended to cover the cost of today's event. You can see the names earlier, they were scrolling across the screen of those sponsors, and then you can also see those sponsors on our event page online. I would also like to thank Lubbock ISD TV, who has been a huge help in moving this event online, including airing the live stream for those of you watching online. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you to our 2020 campaign chair, AJ Martinez. AJ is with the CPA firm Robinson, Burdett, Martin, and Seawright. He has been a volunteer of the United Way since 2012 when he first served as a loan executive. Since then, he has chaired the accounting division, professional division, and leadership giving for the annual campaign. He has been a member of the United Way Board of Directors since 2017. AJ and his wife Lacey have 2 children, Ayla and Maddox. Please join me in welcoming my friend, AJ Martinez.
Thanks, John, and thanks to everyone in this room today and joining us online. Greatly appreciate your time and for taking the time to be with us today. I am thrilled to be this year's United Way campaign chair. Even with everything going on, it is an absolute honor and privilege to be associated with this organization and be chairing this event this year. As you will hear and see today, the need for United Way in our South Plains community has grown exponentially over the last few months. The problems that existed before COVID and the pandemic have not gone away. They've only amplified. The challenge and the challenges before us is great, but it is one that we can and one that we must overcome and meet. Before we get too far along, I would like to take a moment to recognize the vice chairs of this year's campaign who are giving their talent and leadership to ensure the success of each division. Campaign Chair-elect Mark Griffin with Rip Griffin Companies, Corporate Chair Ryan Curry with TXP Capital, Development Chair Chad Grant with Alderson Auto Group, JUMPSTART Chair Tyler Young with Texas Tech Credit Union, Leadership Giving Chair John Zwiker with Scoggin-Dickey, Live United Golf Tournament Chair Matt Stevens with Prosperity Bank, Loan Executive Chair Kelsey Johnson with the YWCA of Lubbock, Local Government Chair Brooke Witcher with the City of Lubbock, Marketing Chair Allison Matherly with Texas Tech University, and Professional Chair Laura Vincent with Prosperity Bank. And as well, Special Gifts Chair Becky Jones. Please join me in recognizing these volunteers and their dedication to the Lubbock Area United Way and our community. Now I am very eager to show you this year's campaign video. I'm very grateful to everyone who contributed and took time out to put this together in the midst of everything going on. So without further ado, here's the 2020 United Way campaign video.
The challenges we face today may feel impossible, unshakable, unmovable. For many, they have rattled us to our very core, leaving us breathless with little to hope for. We find ourselves uncertain of how to move forward, how to provide safe, stable environments for our families, how to fix the broken things and rebuild what has been lost, how to make it in a world that has radically changed from the one we knew. But there is hope, and when it ignites, it spreads like wildfire. When the pandemic hit, Lubbock Area United Way and its community partners moved quickly to meet the needs of families and individuals, providing food, helping pay bills, offering childcare for essential service families, and access to online resources for students learning at home. Our partners also continued to do the hard work of protecting children, rescuing victims of domestic violence, and supporting the survivors of sexual assault and trafficking. Community partners, staff, and volunteers put the needs of the most vulnerable among us ahead of their own personal health and safety. United Way and our partners were there from the very beginning of the pandemic and through the unfolding unrest and outcries of racial injustice. We have been here on the South Plains for nearly 75 years because of you and the collective power of people like you who believe in our mission of giving people hope. And it is this hope that rebuilds lives after trauma. It is this hope that ensures all children have access to quality education. It is this hope that works towards a day when every person in our community can have access to what they need to live, to work, and to raise their families. United Way's mission is not done in isolation. It takes each of us doing our part, because hope starts here. In you, in your neighborhood, in our community. Hope is only possible when the valuable contributions of individuals come together to work toward common goals, to seek solutions that benefit everyone. This is what it means to be a united way. All of us walking together toward hope. Make your gift to Lubbock Area United Way today and ignite hope. Share it with your friends and neighbors. Together, let's spread a wildfire of hope and bring light to the darkest places of our community. Hope starts here.
Hope starts here, our campaign theme this year. You know, earlier this year, very early in the year, we sat down with the marketing committee to come up with that based on a mantra of ideas I had and some other very important minds had, and call it serendipity or whatever you like, but I cannot think of a more important message to be spread through our community in today's environment. In me, in you, in our community, working together. We've seen it time and time again over the last few months, and we'll continue to see it going forward. We'd especially like to thank KCBD News Channel 11, Fox 34, and the YWCA of Lubbock, who shared footage for the video. And we'd also like to thank United Way board member, Pastor Bill Stubblefield, for providing the voiceover. Now I'd like to welcome JUMPSTART Chair Tyler Young with Texas Tech Credit Union to share about the companies who supported us this year by running their workplace campaigns early.
Thanks, AJ. This year we've had 5 local businesses, along with the Lubbock Association of Realtors, who have helped us get the ball rolling with this year's campaign. First, just want to recognize a great group of volunteers who have worked hard to help these companies run their campaigns, some of which test drove the new tools that United Way has put together to help the campaigns run virtually. These passionate volunteers have shared their time, efforts, and voices to tell the United Way story and inspire others to give. Thank you to Topher Empson with First United Bank, AJ McLeod with the YWCA of Lubbock, and Brett Villarreal with Plains Capital Bank. Representatives from our JUMPSTART companies are here with us today. On your tables, you will find a plaque as a small thank you from us recognizing you and your organization's contribution. Our 2020 JUMPSTART companies are Robinson, Burdett, Martin, and Seawright. They are a first-time JUMPSTART company. Employees at this CPA firm showed their support for our community and their fellow colleague, 2020 campaign chair, AJ Martinez, gave a total of $18,713. Essential service workers at City Bus have kept our city moving throughout the pandemic and into a new school year. City Bus employees rallied together to contribute $50,000. Thank you to Chris Mandrell, Shannon Garrett, and Tori Perkins, who are in the room with us today. Thank you, guys. Our local realtors are still working to bring in additional gifts. As of today, the Lubbock Association of Realtors and its members have given $64,141. And just want to say thank you to Janie Coggins and Ken Harlan, who are here today. Thank you. Plains Capital Bank employees work to keep local businesses moving and continue to show their longtime support of United Way by contributing $86,266. Thank you to Barry Ballinger, Julie Mandrell, and Greg Allen, who are here today. Thank you. Citibank employees were also working to keep businesses open and employees paid while continuing their tradition of support for United Way and our community partners by giving $110,482. Joining us today are Paul Ehlers, Amber Dean, and Brennan Ehlers. Thank you for your support. And United Supermarkets team members have kept stores open and continued to show their great commitment to the South Plains through their support of United Way. United and their team have contributed $379,314 to this year's campaign. Big thanks to Robert Taylor, Sydney Hopper, Chris James, Debbie Sumner, and Brittany White. Thank you guys for your support. So the grand total for JUMPSTART companies and their employees is $708,917. For the JUMPSTART companies that are here, if we haven't taken your picture yet, Lynn just asked me to announce at the end of today's luncheon, if you'll meet right over here at the United Way backdrop so we can get your photo, we would appreciate that. And if you would please just join me again in thanking these organizations who have generously supported United Way. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler, and thank you to the Lubbock Association of Realtors and the rest of our JUMPSTART companies. You really do get us jump-started and off to a great start, so thank you for that. The greater good. Most of us have probably heard of that sentiment, volunteering or donating to a cause that is bigger than us as an individual. Today, I'd like to challenge that idea, and I think the world around us is also challenging that idea as well. When we talk about the greater good or something that is bigger than us individually, the challenges we face begin to feel overwhelming. We begin to think the size of the problems are too big for us to overcome. Greater good thinking can keep us from knowing even where to start. It can separate us from our neighbors in need when we're thinking up at that 30,000-foot level. We forget about those who we're helping are right next door. Maybe they work in the next cubicle. They're people we interact with on a day-to-day basis. But COVID and the outcries of racial injustice have taught us that every one of us is in need. We're all deeply interconnected, and when our neighbors suffer, we suffer. We have also learned that these challenges aren't bigger than any one of us individually. We can make face masks, we can deliver lunch to hospital employees, we can stand side by side with people of color and say, I'm listening. These are things we can do. We witnessed it this summer when the United Way partnered with the Community Fund of West Texas to create the South Plains COVID-19 Response Fund. West Texans gave more than $1.6 million to help neighbors in need. The volunteer committee that came together to distribute those funds distributed all $1.6 million to help those in immediate need in just 90 days, a remarkable feat. In my time volunteering with the Lubbock Area United Way, I have learned that there is not a cause that is bigger than me, because I'm part of a community that is successful when and only when we're working together to meet the needs of every person and every family. I have learned that the challenges in the Lubbock area are not relegated to one demographic or a few neighborhoods. Needs are in every demographic, in every neighborhood. But fortunately for us, there are people in every demographic, in every neighborhood, willing and able and trying to overcome those challenges. This is what we mean when we talk about community. It's something we all are a part of. Every one of us doing what we can to support our friends, our family, and our neighbors. We're not talking about the greater good. It's our own good. It's us helping us. And this is what the United Way is all about. Had the United Way not had the tremendous support of South Plains citizens, we would not have been able to respond to the pandemic in the quick response time we had. In a minute, you're going to hear about the tremendous work our community partners have done over the last few months. Hope started with you because you gave. Your consistent contributions to the United Way over the last 74 years helped ensure we were able to respond to this crisis and help our South Plains neighbors in need. Whether you're sitting in this room today or watching with us online, I am doing my best to look every one of you in the eye and say thank you. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you. What you do matters tremendously. We know that there are many in our community dealing with financial hardships. Many of our supporters are simply not able to give at the same level they've consistently been able to do so. We're aware of that, we're conscious of that, we're respectful of that. Because of this, we need everyone who can continue to give to please do so. And if you're able to, consider giving a few dollars more. It's very impactful. With your continued support, we're setting out today to reach a goal of $5,712,385 this year. Gifts that will ensure the continued sustainability of the Lubbock Area United Way and our community partners. Hope starts here, right now, this moment. I'm asking you to not let this be bigger than you. Be a part of it. Be one of many doing your part to make our community better. Thank you for giving and supporting the United Way. And again, hope starts right here, right now, in you, in me, in our community, us helping us. Thank you. Now, I'd like to welcome our 2020 Community Impact Chair, Kevin McConaughey with Covenant Health, to share about the amazing work our community partners have been doing over the past few months. Kevin?
Thank you so much, AJ, and thank you for all of you for being here. Thank you to all of you for being here today. It's been my pleasure over the last 2 years to serve as the Community Impact Chair for United Way. And in that time, in all my years in volunteering with United Way, I've been able to interact and been blessed to interact with a number of community partners, their board members, their staff, and many of them doing what they do. I'm continually impressed with the level of service and commitment that these agencies and their teams exhibit. I can tell you that these are some of the best people that I've ever been around and had the privilege of knowing. I can also tell you that I've never been more grateful or more proud of the community partners and what they've done over the last few months. When the pandemic hit, the United Way and our partners jumped into action. The United Way team worked to pull together online resource centers where everyone could find updates from local governments, our schools, food assistance, rent and utility assistance, and more, all in one place. As things carried on, they added parenting and mental health resources as well. You can still find that on the United Way website where they continue to update it on a regular basis. Our partners also leaped into action. The Early Learning Centers and the YWCA shifted child care programming to serve essential service families at affordable rates, and communities and schools help school districts shift to online learning. Many of our partners helped with meal pickup at schools as well. The Salvation Army began offering Hope Totes to families in need of basic cleaning supplies and food. They were also able to help individuals who had lost wages or jobs with rent assistance and utility assistance. Catholic Charities continue to assist families with rent, utilities, and food. They are an important lifeline for many of our families and many of our elderly in the community who did not have access to online services. Women's Protective Services and Legal Aid continue to work to provide a safe place for survivors of domestic violence and the necessary court orders to keep them safe. While reports of child abuse and sexual assault went down, the Children's Advocacy Center and the Voice of Hope continue to serve survivors and their families. They've also been preparing for the unexpected increases in our communities when our communities reopen. The Parenting Cottage, CASA, and Family Counseling Services moved services online and followed local, state, and federal guidelines to continue supporting families, foster children, and mental health of anyone who needed those services. Upbring's Neighborhood House worked with the city to distribute more than $1 million in aid for rent and utility assistance since the beginning of the pandemic. Lubbock Children's Health Clinic continued to see children regardless of their ability to pay. They were an invaluable resource to families in under medically serviced areas. The Boys and Girls Club, as well as the Guadalupe Parkway Neighborhood Centers, offered tutoring help and were able to reopen to families for their summer programs. Their after-school programs, as well as the YWCA's, started back up last week. Literacy Lubbock and Goodwill moved their adult education classes online. The Red Cross continued to respond to home fires and other disasters that didn't stop when COVID hit. And Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Girl Scouts, and Boy Scouts all met online to encourage and support their children that were in their programs. And then the Volunteer Center continued to support all of our partners and many other nonprofits throughout the community with both on and offline volunteer support. While responding to this pandemic, we saw a reawakening to the inequalities and injustices surrounding race relations in our country. Internally, our board and staff are working to reaffirm United Way's commitment to equity on the South Plains. We're also putting plans in place to train our own staff and our own board and support others to prioritize diversity, equity, and inclusion in their organizations. With those of you online and those of you here in the room, please take a moment to help me recognize the tireless work of our United Way community partners, staff, volunteers, and board members. They have kept our community on their feet, and they will continue to do so with your support. Give them a hand. Thank you so much to all of our community partners, and thank you to their staff and volunteers. You guys are absolute rock stars.
Thank you, Kevin, and thanks again to our partners for your inspiring work and dedication to the South Plains. Now, I am extremely honored to have here with us today Lubbock ISD Superintendent Dr. Kathy Rollo, Friendship ISD Superintendent Dr. Michelle McCord, and Lubbock Cooper ISD Superintendent Keith Bryant. All three are Lubbock Area United Way board members and have seen firsthand the difference United Way and our community partners make for students, faculties, and educators in our South Plains communities. The strong partnerships we have with our area school districts are an integral part of our impact, and we are grateful to the superintendents for taking the time out during the second week of school to be with us here today. Please join me in welcoming Kathy Rollo, Michelle McCord, and Keith Bryant. Thanks again to the three of you for making it a priority to be here today. Before we get started, I just want to say as a parent, I'm so grateful for you and every employee in your districts and our other South Plains school districts. I can't imagine what the last few months must have been like for you all, making the hard decisions you've had to make, and you've done a great job adjusting, and under your leadership, we've come a long way in the last few months, so thank you very much from all of us. Thank you. I know you all have stories, so many stories of students, faculty, families, educators who have been supported by the United Way and our community partners. Let's get started with sharing a few of those stories. Michelle, you've been working with United Way for a number of years and in a number of roles, including helping to get started our Women United group. And my understanding is that during a training exercise that the Women United group held on sex trafficking, a story hit home with you, or you were able to come up with a story that hit home with you of something that happened in that training exercise. Would you mind sharing that with us?
For sure, yes, thank you. The United Way does so many great things, and as a part of my just participation in the United Way, I went to a training that was provided by the Voice of Hope. And one of the things that resulted from that in the training, there was a training video that kind of shows just anyone the signs to look for in someone, a young lady or a young man, more prevalent in young women who has been sex trafficked. And as a result of that, it really hit home for me. We trained all of our staff, custodians, grounds, maintenance, teachers, in the signs to look for. And then something that came out of that is that we had a young, well, she wasn't a young woman. She was a girl. She was a girl at a middle school. And it's hard for me to say, I'm gonna do this without crying, that she made an outcry to one of our counselors. And she had been sex trafficked. That didn't happen in a faraway place. It happened here. And it happened to one of our students. She was 14 years old when that happened. Thankfully, because she trusted in the counselor, and thankfully because of the United Way and the training that the Voice of Hope provided for me, and then I provided to our staff, that young lady made an outcry, and she was swept up and helped. The good people came in and got her the help that she needed. She hasn't come back to Lubbock. She's in a safe place. But I think sometimes we just think about these things happening in a faraway place or in a certain zip code and not happening in another zip code. But it's happening right here on the South Plains. Happened to a Friendship student. And I'm embarrassed to say, but I think it's important to say that it is middle school girls who are the most sought after, because most likely they haven't had a sexual experience, so they're virgins. And that comes, it gets a higher price, I guess. And so I'm just grateful to the United Way. So that opened my eyes to it. Absolutely. And opened our staff's eyes to it, so that I know of one young lady that was able to get some help, and I know there's a lot more who are getting help as well. Absolutely.
You know, everyone, I knew that story coming into today, and still, when she says it, it's so impactful. It pulls the heartstrings, and it's a sad reality that we live in, and it's so hard to imagine being in that position, Michelle, but I'm very grateful that you were there and able to react and help in that situation. Thank you for that. Kathy, another way, the United Way, another priority issue of the United Way that affects so many of our students in our community is child abuse and neglect. And it's an unfortunate reality that every day in Lubbock County there are 3 confirmed cases of abuse and neglect. And last year alone, 5 of our children lost their lives to this issue. I can only imagine that for you guys, for all 3 of you, this is a hugely important issue, and one that we must meet head on. Kathy, would you mind sharing us a little bit about how child abuse affects you and your staff and your students?
Yes, thank you, AJ. Child abuse and neglect is absolutely a very real concern that we all face. You heard Kevin say earlier that the child abuse and neglect reporting was down during the pandemic, but that doesn't mean that it wasn't happening. We know the numbers were down, but we know that the pandemic and the stressors that families were facing, it probably actually, if reporting was happening, would be greatly exacerbated. Our teachers, I know this was one of the things, as soon as we shut our schools down in March, this was one of many things that kept all 3 of us up at night, was worrying about our kids. Because our teachers, our counselors, our campus administrators have gone through training, and they know how to seek out those signs of child abuse and neglect. Whether it's physical signs such as bruises, scrapes, those kinds of things, or behavioral signs such as a child suddenly withdrawing or not participating when they used to. Our business is about relationships, and when kids are in our presence, they develop relationships with people and they begin to form bonds of trust, and they will share things. And so we know kids being in school is so important to help us combat that. I think of a story that just last week I was visiting with one of our teachers, one of our many amazing teachers. And when we started back our band practices this summer, she was helping with that. And a student came up to her and confided in her about some of the trauma she had been dealing with in her home since March. And we were able to intervene and get help for this student. So it's so very important that our community understand the role that our school districts play, but also our agencies in our community that help our students, such as CASA and the Children's Advocacy Center, Women's Protective Services. We work with all of these agencies that help our students who have dealt with the trauma with child abuse and neglect.
Absolutely. You know, earlier I mentioned this is what we mean when we talk about community, and I think these are good examples of, as Kathy just mentioned, you know, one issue happens, but it doesn't only affect that child, it affects their circle, and then a community partner comes in and helps, and many times multiple community partners are needed, and those resources are available. So thank you for being able to react to that as well. It's heartbreaking that so many of our families in our community have to deal with that on a day-to-day basis, but it's the reality of the situation. And an unfortunate side effect of this pandemic is the underreporting of some of those issues, and hopefully we can normalize and at least understand where we're at and able to tackle those issues going forward. Keith, let's focus a little bit more on the education side. You all have worked with us for the last couple of years on the United We Read initiative, a volunteer event the United Way created to promote literacy and encourage parents to read at home with their kids. And I have 2 young kids at home, and reading with them is one of the joys of my day. And so we're grateful for that initiative. And I know there are so many amazing stories that come out of that, but would you mind sharing a little bit about the United We Read?
Sure, AJ, and thank you everybody for the opportunity to be here with you today. And on behalf of the 3 of us, thank you for the support you've given us on allowing us to restart school. It has been much needed for many people in the community, and certainly for our kids. And I think about education and what it means for young kids specifically. United We Read is one of the shining examples of what our United Way does. Every fall, in second grade classrooms around the entire county, all the county school districts. Many of you and other volunteers not in this room come into classrooms and read a book to a class full of kids. And those kids get to take that book home. We have a young man in our district who loves coming to school. Now, I wish all kids loved coming to school, but it's amazing how many were excited to come back in person. But this young man splits time between his mother and his grandmother and never misses a day of school, partly because he loves to read. He doesn't have many books at home, in fact, very few, and he loves to come to school because he can play basketball, and he doesn't have a basketball, or did not have a basketball before United We Read this last year. And so he was so excited when the reader came and read Thelma the Unicorn. He got to read the book and do an activity, a craft activity, and then he was so excited he got to take the book home as his very own book. Well, the person reading found out that he loved basketball and didn't own a basketball. Now the young man has a basketball. And he says he's going to be an author. In fact, we think he'll write a sequel to Thelma the Unicorn. and maybe one day that young man, as we know reading instruction is so important, will come back and be a part of United Way in our community or in another community. So the impact that our community has through some of the negative things the ladies have shared, but also in a positive light, the impact that just another adult in a kid's life can have is immeasurable.
Absolutely, and you're right. There are so many facets to it, the United Way and the community partners, our community partners. We attack some dark realities, but there are some bright lights at the end of that tunnel, and that's just a good example. Again, referring back to that meaning of community, us helping us. I mean, many of you in this room and many of you online today have been in those classrooms reading those children, and I'm sure you took away one or two little stories, personal stories to you from interacting with those kids. I know I have, and I know that those children really appreciate that, and I look forward to continuing that for years and years to come. And I think it's probably safe and fair to assume that the last few months have been the hardest for most people in most people's careers, but particularly and especially in the education industry. But given that all you've had to do and shifting from a in-person to adapting to an online-only format late spring last year to having a hybrid of the two this year, cannot thank you enough for everything y'all have done to do that. Many United Way community partners stepped in to help in various ways. Will you all share what that looked like for you and your districts and give us some insight as to how those community partners stepped up to help you get through this pandemic?
Well, I'll begin, and I want to talk specifically. There's so many entities, and of the 23 agencies, we could all talk about each of you, but in particular, I want to talk about communities and schools. Interestingly enough, the story I told you about the young man, community and schools site coordinator got some people together, and that young man and his family had their very first Christmas tree last year, and Christmas presents around that tree for the first time. But beyond that, when the spring came and we all left for spring break, what we thought was going to be 1 week that turned into 5 months, communities and schools partnered with us, our site coordinators, and helped us deliver meals to students at home. They helped us distribute technology so kids could continue learning. They went to the grocery store for families that could not get out and go buy basic necessities. And so that's just one example, AJ, of what one of our community partners has done in a real way that made a significant impact on our community.
Yeah, and I think it's super important to understand that so much has to be done for a specific case, and it really is the community coming together. That's just a great example. Michelle, Kathy, any additional?
I would like to share that we appreciate all of these agencies and everything they did. Every agency stepped in and helped our kids during this time. A couple of things that I would like to call out. We served over 1 million meals this summer. Well, really March through the summer, both at curbside pickup and we took buses into the neighborhoods to actually deliver meals. And we ran out of bags to put the meals in. And so Goodwill stepped in and helped us with bags to get those meals to kids. But then there's one thing I really want to point out. We all have heard of the summer slide. We know every summer some kids lose ground with their learning, so we always have to start the beginning of the year with some catch-up. Well, this year we call it the COVID cliff. Really, with March through August, some of our kids lost a lot of ground. But one organization in particular, the YWCA, really helped to stop that COVID cliff. In fact, the kids that were in the program at the Y actually gained ground. Glenda Mathis, who's in the room today, she contacted me at the very beginning of this, and she had 80+ kids of essential workers, and she said, Kathy, we don't want to just be babysitters. We know there are huge learning gaps. What can we do to help fill those gaps? And so I got her connected to some resources, and her staff actually became teachers this summer, and they did some pre-assessment and post-assessment, and her kids that she worked with actually made reading gains. So I just want to say thank you to the YWCA, because the children you served came back to school ready for that at next grade levels. So that's just another example of how our agencies help support our kids.
Well, so many phrases and mottos, and there's so many things being coined over the last few months. It's just good to hear, and great that Glenda and her staff were able to do that. And the COVID cliff, I think that's going to be one we'll take away from today. I'm sure we all have the COVID cliff to some degree. Michelle, anything to add there?
I would just add that along with the meals and the delivery of meals and food, but I can't think of any United Way partner agency that didn't help in some way or another, whether it's Salvation Army or Catholic Charities with rent. You know, when we had to shut down, when we're in the shutdown phase, not only did people need food, they needed help with electricity. They needed help to not become homeless as a part of this. And so just, you know, and one of the things that's great about Lubbock and great about the United Way, but maybe we need to do a little bit better job of, is we just do all this quietly. It's just all done so quietly because it's just what you do, because it's the right thing to do. But sometimes I think that, so yesterday when we practiced a little, I needed lots of practice, I even struggled to come up with some of the names of the individual partners that helped with us, just because they just do it so seamlessly and quietly in the background. And we couldn't do that without these partner agencies. You don't see them all over the news. You don't see them getting lots of accolades, because that's not the reason why we do it in Lubbock. We just do it because it's the right thing to do. And we have to do it because we're all in this. It's not just those kids or Lubbock kids or Lubbock ISD kids or Lubbock Cooper. These are all our kids. And for us to equip them and for them to be successful and thrive this year and the years to come, we're responsible for all of them. All of us are.
Yeah, and you're right, quietly. That's a mantra our partner agencies take, because they do it because they do it for the right reasons. And you're right, we do a good job, but we need to do a louder job of recognizing them and saying how much they mean to us, because as you can see in every one of these stories, there are multiple agencies helping in these situations. I think we're all too aware by now that no one can predict the future, and believe me, if anyone could, I wish I could. But as kids go back to school, what's most important for us to be focusing on as a community?
Well, I think that one of the things that we've focused on a lot, and AJ, you hit the nail on the head. We don't know what the future holds. And when you don't know what the future holds, honestly, none of us ever really did, but we kind of thought we did. But we're dealing with so much ambiguity and so much uncertainty, and we don't do well in those scenarios. So one of United Way was sort of fortuitous when one of their strategic plans was to face the mental health issues that are happening. And I will just say that from my vantage point, the mental health crisis was already ramping up before COVID-19 hit. As a public school educator, I know that Kathy and Keith experienced the same things before COVID. We have children coming to school anxious. We have children coming to school who are suicidal. We have children coming to school who just, it's another thing that crosses every socioeconomic boundary, every zip code, but I'm telling you that I haven't coined this phrase, but there's another epidemic, a pandemic, that is well underway, and it's a mental health crisis.
Yeah, that we've talked about that a number of times, and there are two pandemics, one we all live in and one we all also live in, we just don't know it yet, and that's the mental health crisis. And thank you for all you do to help on that front, and I know there's so much more we could talk about. Again, I want to thank each of you for being here with us today, your faculty, your staff, the cafeteria workers, the cleaning crews, everyone who made the transition to virtual, back to 100% virtual, back to the hybrid that we're at now, and thank you for getting school started again, and we appreciate your time. Please join me in thanking the superintendents for being with us today. And thanks again, Kathy, Michelle, and Keith. We greatly appreciate your leadership in all three of your districts and your dedication to the United Way. I want you all to know how hard our team has been working to put together tools and resources to support you and your workplace campaigns. There are many new online tools we made available to help support you in any way we can. Maximum flexibility, another coined term over the last few months. We're all in this together, but more than anything, hope starts right here, right now, this very moment, hope starts. In me, in each of you, in our community, us helping us. Thank you all here in this room and online for joining us for our first ever live streamed kickoff. Local and state guidelines allowing, we're hoping to be back in person for the mid-report luncheon on October 21st and our final report luncheon on December 1st. Make sure you follow us, the Lubbock Area United Way, on social media and sign up for our e-newsletter for updates. Thank you all for your tremendous support of the United Way and our South Plains communities. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you.